Hello, Erin. I'm taking a look at your scales and things look good. Now, let's see. At left, all three colors should be identical, and you know, to the naked eye, they look to be. However, when I take the color picker out, I see a little variation. One other thing, your gray at the end of tones could be more neutral, and you can check that by making sure that all the values, R, G, and B, are just the same. Hi, Janet. I'm taking a look at your scales and they do look good. One thing, the leftmost boxes should all be just the same and they do look the same to the eye, but when I take the color picker out, I see a little variation there. Also, tints should end in white. When I look at your gradation of hue, why, it's pretty good. Colors could be even more saturated though. Value is good. And gradation of saturation should be a lot like tones, where a goal is to keep the value the same. So that means adding gray to your saturated hue. Hi, Lauren. I'm looking at your scales and they look quite good. Let's see, your tints ends in white, shades in a perfect black, and with tones, well, the gray is almost entirely neutral. If it were neutral, the R, G, and B values would be just the same. And by the way, you start with the very same blue each time, and values look quite constant in tones. You've done a good job here. Now, let's see, with gradation of hue, this is a nice solution. All of your colors are fully saturated. I wonder whether the interval is kind of great from the cyan to the blue circle. Perhaps there could be an intermediate color there. Now, let's see, gradation of value looks great. One little suggestion there is you could use a guide and line up your circles on a guide or the grid, and say you wanted them in a diagonal row. Well, I might align them vertically, then group them or merge the layers, and then rotate that group so that they're all really neat and straight, right in a line. Hi, Ria, your scales look really good. The only little thing I could suggest is that perhaps tones could be even more constant in value. Gradation of hue looks good. Gradation of value is very nice. However, it might be a little more original. I'm going to push for original solutions in future. This reminds me a little of this sample. Gradation in saturation is good, but values could be even more constant there. Hi, Mary. Taking a look at your scales. Things look pretty good. You end with a perfect white, a perfect black, and a perfect gray. All three colors at the left side are the same exactly. The only thing I could say here is that in tones, the value should be constant, and that is a tricky one with yellow. Now, your gradation of hue looks great. I love that design, and the gradation of value is something else. You took what was an okay but kind of plain looking design and went whole hog, and I'm glad I spurred you on a little bit because I really like what you came up with. And the gradation of saturation turned out very well too. Values look quite constant. Hi, Melissa. I'm taking a look at your scales, and you start off with lavender squares, all the same in each of the scales, and clearly you have the idea. Now, let's see. Tints should end in white. That would be R, G, and B values in the color picker, all 255. Black should be R, G, and B, all 0. And the gray should be same values for R, G, and B in the color picker. All right, let's see. Yeah, I think that your tones is pretty constant in value. That gradation of hue is just beautiful, and the same is true with the gradation in value. The only thing I'm wondering about there is, in the middle of the left side, are those circles lined up the way you want them to be? In week 2, you're going to be learning how to use the guides, grid, and snapping, and you might even go back to this lovely file and fix it up just a tad so that it is absolutely perfect. And your gradation of saturation looks very good too, with constant hues. Looking at your scales, Liz, they look quite good. Your leftmost blocks all seem to be just the same, and I'm right. the white is correct, the black is correct. For a perfectly neutral gray, you want the RG and B values to be identical, but they're pretty close. Let's see, gradation of hue looks very good. This is a lovely layout. The colors are not fully saturated, particularly the bottom right blue is a 2. Now, at first I thought your yellow work was the gradation of value, but now, I'm thinking that works better as a gradation of saturation because value is constant there, and we can use the other one as a gradation of value. Hi, Janine. Looking at your scales, you have the right idea here. All of your leftmost boxes match exactly with RGB values just the same. Now, let's see. On right, on top in tints, you want to end in white. In shades, you've ended in black. In tones, you've got a gray there. For a perfectly neutral gray, make sure the R, G, and B values in the color picker are all identical. Now, tones look fairly constant in value, but I think we have to acknowledge that there is a problem with interval between boxes 1 and 2. That's a pretty big jump. Okay, now, let's see. Gradation of hue. Well, those colors are fully saturated. The trouble is we don't have a gradation. A gradation is a gradual transition. These colors are a little too different from each other to be lined up next to one another and for us to sense a smooth transition. Now, gradation of value looks good, and gradation of saturation is also quite fine. Hello, Tanya. Looking at your scales, well, you have the idea here. These are basically correct. With the leftmost boxes, they should all have the same RGB values, and you want to end in pure white in tints and black with RG and B values all 0 in shades, and tones should have a gray that's entirely neutral, which would have same RG and B values. Let's see, your tones scale seems to be pretty constant in value. Now, on to the gradation of saturation. No, I mean to say the gradation of hue. That's a really nice example. Gradation of value works well, and gradation of saturation is correct. The only thing is we might want for a greater interval so that those colors don't seem to merge together since they're so similar. Hi, Suzette. I'm taking a look at your scales, and I think they're just about as perfect as they could be. Now, on to gradation of hue. Well, that looks nice. That looks like a good, somewhat casual solution. However, I could be the circle police here, as well as with your other parts 2 assignment for. You have some nice ideas. These 2 for parts 2 and 3 remind me of olives. Your part 2 is correct, and part 3 has values that are pretty constant. Hi, Jamie. Your scales all appear to be correct in gradation of hue. You do have saturated colors. However, it seems as though your circles melted, and whether those began as circles or not, I don't think anybody could call them circles now, so you're a little guilty of bending the rules in part 1. But parts 2 and 3 are okay. Value is correct, and saturation works well too. Hi, Samantha. I'm taking a look at your scales. Tones looks really good, for example. The values are all constant. With shades, you end in black, but it would be best if that black had RG and B values all 0, 0, 0. And in tints, you want to end in a pure white. Now, one thing you are guilty of is not starting with the same colors on left. All 3 boxes at extreme left should be identical. Now, part 1, gradation of hue. This looks good. You got the right idea. However, if you choose your colors from the color picker, if you pick from the top right corner, your colors will all be fully saturated. Gradation of value is okay. Now note the assignment said keep hue constant. Essentially, you've got a variety of different gradations of value. Your gradation of saturation looks good. I like your idea. It could be a little more constant in terms of value. Actually, what we want here is something that looks a lot like a tone scale.